Hey, what's up? It's Joe. Welcome to my 5-Minute Friday for October 11th. So just got back from Las Vegas yesterday. I was speaking at DBT's Coalesce conference on Wednesday, and then hung out with a bunch of friends at various parties and events and so forth. It was super cool, obviously, to see old friends and make some new ones. And yeah, I had a lot of fun there. The thing I like about DBT's conference is it's very practitioner focused, and most attendees are practitioners. This is different from a lot of conferences I go to. When I go to a lot of conferences, there's definitely practitioner heavy events, like the one I went to in Australia, Data Eng Bytes. It's practitioner heavy. But then you go to other events, there's two popular ones that happen in June, for example, in San Francisco. You can probably guess what they are, but a lot of those tend to be, I would say, kind of customer heavy. And by that, I mean, decision makers, executives, directors, managers, and some practitioners show up, but it's definitely more of a mix of vendors and their customers versus people who are actually doing the work and using the product on a day-to-day basis. So I find it's always refreshing to go to a conference where it's more practitioner based. I think feels like it's a lot more grounded in reality, in the sense where you're talking to people who, use the tools, work with data, get their hands dirty. And I definitely appreciate, hanging out with practitioners and just talking to them about whatever they're doing. So anyway, things in my mind this week. This is kind of a follow up to my field notes, early fall 2024 edition that I posted last week. So that article got quite a bit of shares and discussion and so forth, which is always cool to see. It's interesting. People gravitated towards something that's sort of in the middle of the newsletter, and it was only about 4 sentences, but it said, data is still a mess. Most data initiatives fail. Data teams are seen as a cost center and not getting the support they deserve. And then I said, same as it ever was. So let me unpack these real quick. I think there's actually about 4 books that could be written out of these 4 sentences. So, let's start with data is still a mess, right? Data is still a mess. It's interesting. I think this is actually coupled with the most data initiatives fail part, but I'll talk about data is still a mess. Data is largely still something that I think we kick the can down the road on. Data quality is still very hit and miss. I think when I talk to practitioners, I don't think there's anybody who is insanely proud of the data that they work with. I think for the most part, especially when you're talking about analytics, the attempt is just to kind of duct tape and glue the data together and maybe patch over some rough spots on it. But overwhelmingly, data is really hard to work with. I guess that's why you have data teams, to work with the data and make it useful and believable for users. But it seems like no matter the sophistication of the tooling, we're still stuck in the same place. This has actually been the argument of my data modeling talks I've been giving over the past couple of years in various forms. But until we can get back to, I think there's 2 threads of this. One is knowledge. I think there's a very much a gap in practitioner knowledge of data modeling and data quality and governance, and that needs to be addressed. And I think I'm trying to do that with the work I'm doing on the book, as well as giving talks, and there might be a course that comes out on data modeling at some point based on the book. But the whole point is that I think the knowledge gap is real, and it's not getting any smaller. And this is tied to the most data initiatives fail as well, right? So data initiatives fail, in no small part due to the fact that data is really hard, right? And data is a mess because we're not investing in setting the foundations, either technologically or competency-wise, to fix data. And so again, we just kick the can down the road. We'll get to it someday, as the old saying goes. Technical debt tickets pile up and never seem to get to them. And then the business tends to lose faith in these efforts, and budgets are cut, data teams are reduced or gone, and the business somehow just limps along doing what it does. Turns out a lot of businesses can do just fine with pretty minimal data. There's always this number that's been thrown around, I think, for a couple decades, at least I've seen, and it seems to hover around 80% of data and more largely IT initiatives fail, right? So call it 60%, call it 70%, call it 90%, but 80% sort of the old trope, the old number that's thrown around. And nitpicking over the numbers, I think misses the broader point that failure rate is very high, right? If this was your kid and this is the grades in school, I think you'd be a bit upset. But this is, I think, you sort of come to accept that this is how it is. There's actually some really good books written on just why things fail, especially when we're talking about big projects. I think it's called How Big Things Fail. Definitely go check it out. But a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're just like really bad at scoping. There's probably political reasons why you want budget overruns. Budget overruns means you get more budget next year, and that's how it works in a lot of companies. That's. But IT was among the worst I recall in this book, where it was like, it wasn't just an order of magnitude. It wasn't just like being like 25% off or something on cost overruns. It was like, I think doublings or triplings of the cost overruns. So anyway, then business at some point, will lose its patience, and here you are, right? So it's I think it's a failure to deliver value on time as expected. And a lot of this does come back to the data, right? If you're trying to, back in the day, propose a great BI initiative and you find out your data is a mess, guess what? You get to be cleaning up all the data, and that takes a long time. But if you'd promised stakeholders that this would be done, within a reasonably short window, and you didn't deliver, you can see what happens, right? And this also follows with the thing I wrote. So data teams are often seen as a cost center and not getting the support they deserve. So oftentimes data initiatives and data teams play defense, right? So you're seen as providing reports. You're seen as, providing the maybe the infrastructure for people to do quote self-service analytics. These are inherently defensive plays. Every time, and this sucks because now you're seen as a cost center. Now, every time you request budget, that request is seen as a defensive play, not an offensive one. An offensive play would be we're integrating data into our core business practices in order to improve it, right? Not just to get some gee whiz insights, look at some dashboards. Actually, nobody looks at dashboards after a while, and so forth, right? And so when you're having to, kick and scream for every penny in your budget, you're inherently a cost center. You're playing defense. Budget is given to those who are playing defense and helping, or not playing defense, but playing offense. And you're seen as adding to the competitive advantage of the business. And you're playing to win. I think most data teams and IT teams are playing not to lose. And there's a big, big difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. So obviously for successful data teams, you have to have an internal playbook, right? This means data observability. You're playing defense internally, but when you're working with a business, I suggest playing offense. Work alongside the business, align on key initiatives that move the needle for stakeholders. Help align those to KPIs that drive the business forward. But don't just be a defensive play where, both internally and externally, where all you're doing is, providing data to the business. And this, because this data is never really used. I can tell you from experience that's just how it is. Somebody, it's interesting. I was on a panel in, I think it was Melbourne, Australia, a couple weeks ago, and somebody, I was talking about how most data teams are a cost center, and some gentleman piped in and, was telling me that, every data team is leading to competitive advantage of businesses. And I just had to call this guy out. I was like, I don't know what rock this person's been living under, but most data teams are seen as a cost center, right? I mean, that's just because IT is seen as a cost center. That's sadly the reality. That's how it's been for decades. Hopefully this changes, but this leads me to the last sentence here. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was, right? So I think until we can stop playing not to lose and start playing to win, it's going to be the same old thing, same old failure rates, same old complaints that the business doesn't care, the business doesn't align to us, yada, 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 same old stuff, right? And that's just the cold reality of where we are. Again, I think there's great opportunities, great tools, but practices wise, like I've said time and time again for years, we don't have a symmetry between the practices and the capability of the tools that we have, right? Things like data modeling, again, architecture, just the basics seem to be lost on a whole generation of practitioners. And until we get that in order, and until we can, that's one aspect. And obviously, I think being a lot more strategically offensive with how we work with the business, we're going to be in the exact same place probably 20 years from now. So anyway, that's my rant for today. I'm going to be taking the next couple of weeks off from travel, which would be great. Doing some virtual conferences in between. Really fun one I'm looking forward to is Deep Dish Data with Matillion. I love working with those guys. I think the date on it is, what is this? I'll post the date in the show notes here. I think I need to find the, actually it's on, I know I have it right here. It's the 23rd of October. So October 23rd, doing Deep Dish Data. We're going to be talking about from modern to postmodern, evolving the data stack. So great discussion. Matthew Scullion, Mark Balcanetti, and I are going to be talking about that. So anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. And apart from that, just going to be like heads down, just writing a book, getting that knocked out. And I know I'm way over time. It's about the 10-minute Fridays now. So anyway, I hope you have a great weekend. Go enjoy it. The weather's really nice, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. It's fall. It's really nice. So, and anyway, hope you have a great time, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.